when I was a kid, I was aware of when beings were around, or spirits, or whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
For a few years before I went to Iraq, I was doing psychic readings for people. And ever since I was a kid, I was very interested in PSI, kinds of metaphysical kinds of things, and ancient, sort of the old wisdom traditions and things like that. Yeah.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
I'm so excited to have Natalie Sudman on the show today. I read her fascinating book and just was blown away, really blown away. Let me tell you a little bit about Natalie. Natalie Sudman is an author, artist, and psychic intuitive. She worked as an archaeologist in the Great Basin states for 16 years before accepting a position managing construction contracts in Iraq. In 2007, Natalie was injured by a roadside bomb. During this incident, she had the most incredible near-death experience that she talks about in detail in her amazing book, Application of Impossible Things. After recovering from her injuries, Natalie retired from government service and now concentrates on her art and writing, both long-term passions. Raised in Minnesota, Natalie has lived most of her adult life in Eastern Oregon, Montana, and South Dakota. She now lives in Arizona. Good morning, Natalie. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you? Thank you for having me on the show.
So great to have you on the show. Your book, The Applications of Impossible Things, reads like an encyclopedia of the environment of the afterlife. I suspect I could read it 1,000 times and still be gaining more awareness each time I read it. It really is an amazing book. I love near-death experiences and I've researched a lot of them. And I think your book is one of the most comprehensive books on the subject I've ever read.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Let's start. We'll tell people what happened. So you were working in Iraq.
I was working in Iraq as a project manager or construction representative with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So I was not military. I was civilian military. And I had been there about a year and a half. I was out in the field with some colleagues, and improvised explosive device detonated under our truck. And it severely injured 3 of us and killed the guard who was sitting in front of me. And at the moment of that explosion, I left my body and had a out-of-body or a near-death experience.
You say in the book when you left your body, because a lot of people talk about the moment they leave their body, that you had the awareness of feeling tired and couldn't wait to get home. 1 minute in the body, the next minute out of the body. But unlike other near-death experiences, you didn't seem to have any sort of confusion about where you were. You seem to be right on it, girl.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew exactly where I was. In one moment I was in the truck and the next moment I was not. And so there was none of, people talk about, hovering above their body in a tunnel and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't experience any of that. I was in the truck and then in a blink, I was not. I was in a different environment and I knew exactly where I was and I knew exactly what I was doing.
Why do you think that you knew that as opposed to other people? Was there a reason?
I don't really know. I think that it may just be that I think that everybody has a different kind of experience. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's very difficult to find words to talk about these experiences and to kind of crush them into a linear story to tell people. And so maybe somebody hears somebody say, oh yeah, well, I was aware here and I kind of felt like I was in a tunnel. And so people go, oh, that kind of makes sense for me, and there's kind of this melding of the conscious mind trying to make sense of it and trying to put it into a context that conscious mind can understand and make sense of. And, being in some way at least conceptually true to the experience. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that we're all different. We all come here with different knowledge and different experiences. We all, as whole beings, have different knowledge and different experiences and make different choices on how we want to create and maintain and shape this adventure of this personality in this body. And so I think that for me, ever since I was a kid, it's been very easy for me to take my consciousness somewhere else.
Okay.
If I don't want to be somewhere, in my consciousness, I focus somewhere else, and I understand myself as being in that other place. My body is still here and it's still functioning, and I'm even saying the right things sometimes, but I'm not really focused here. And so maybe one of my skills is remembering who I am and being able to make that kind of a focus shift really quickly and easily. I don't really know. I bet there's other people who have had experiences like mine.
Yeah, I bet there is. Yeah.
They're just maybe they're not talking about it or something.
So before you had the experience in Iraq with the bomb and the near-death experience, did you have a spiritual life? Did you have knowledge? Did you have awareness of who you were besides your body and your personality?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Since I was a kid, when I was a kid, I was aware of when beings were around, or spirits, or whatever word you want to use.
Okay, yeah.
And for a few years before I went to Iraq, I was doing psychic readings for people. And I had done a lot, ever since I was a kid, I was very interested in PSI, kinds of metaphysical kinds of things, and ancient, sort of the old wisdom traditions and things like that. Yeah. So I did interest before that happened.
Oh, okay. All right. Because that was one of the questions I thought of, because it just seemed, you seem to be so on it, as I said, so aware as soon as you left your body, like not, I must be dead, where am I? That you had some sort of awareness before this happened. It seemed like an interesting choice, though, with that kind of awareness, to put yourself in an environment like Iraq. Was there a conscious reasoning to that, or was it just an impulse?
Consciously, I've always been drawn to intense sorts of, I'll call them microcosms. Like in archaeology, I did archaeology for many years, and that's similar. You work with a small team, and you're all aimed at the same thing. You're doing one job together. So you're kind of a tight team, and it's kind of an unusual thing to be doing. And I really like that. I like that intensity, and I like working with a group kind of all aimed in one direction. And I'm fascinated by all the microcosms that make up the macrocosm of this reality.
Yeah.
When you think about it, we're all living in our own reality.
Yeah.
Well, that's just fascinating to me. It's like, whoa, how can we function? We're all in our own little reality, and we all overlap in different ways. And how do we all stop at this? How do we all agree to stop at a red light?
Look, it's so interesting that you say that, because years ago, when I started my intense journey for meaning, I read the Seth books.
Yes.
Actually, one of the Seth books jumped off a bookshelf and landed, like, you need to read me. And he said in those books, I remember he said that we are all communicating telepathically all the time.
Yes, we are.
Being aware of it or not aware of it, most of us are not aware of it. He said, think of how you drive. You could not drive on your roads if you weren't communicating telepathically. It would be impossible. And I thought about driving, and I thought there are times when you just know what the person in front of you is going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? You know what I mean? For those people who think that they're not communicating telepathically all the time, that's an example of, you're at the lights and you look at someone because you know they're looking at you. There's examples of how it's happening all the time, but the road is.
We have a lot of different words for that too. Not everybody calls that psychic. Some people say, I just have a gut feeling. I just follow my gut. That's fine. That's the same thing. But it's a different language for it, and a language that is kind of a little bit more acceptable to a lot of people, and that's cool. It's still the same thing.
Yeah.
You're using that psychic ability.
Oh, look, I really believe that our psychic ability is our strongest sense.
Yes.
But we get so distracted by all the other senses, which are delicious: taste, touch, smell, sight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're so delicious that we get distracted by those and we don't listen to our strongest sense, which is happening, as the Seth said in his books, all the time.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about the message in your book, which is very much the message I'm bringing with my teachings, is about how we are the creators of our own reality. As you said, we're all living our own perception. We're all in a similar environment, but we've all got different stories going on in our head. So we're all having different experiences because we're all perceiving differently. And three people could watch a movie and have completely different experiences of the same thing, of the same movie. And the message comes through in your book. And also I tell people, go read it, because I can't even hope to explain most of it. Because I have to say, a lot of it I didn't understand, but at the same time, all the information was completely familiar to me, although I didn't sort of comprehend on a conscious level a lot of what you were saying.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comprehension happens at an intuitive level, at a psychic level.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that just feels right, or I mean, in a way, you're remembering.
Yeah.
You're not learning something new. You're remembering, and it may not make sense to the logical, conscious mind. I have had that happen with some books, and I think, wow, I should maybe read that again. Then I realize I don't really need to, because I did get the information. It wasn't necessarily the way I take in some other information.
Yeah, I got it, but I just didn't understand it, but I got it.
Right.
That's right. I mean, it's all learning is remembering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, all lessons are reminding, just rewiring our minds. You talk a lot about the non-physical environment, and you identify many different spaces that happen there. When you're in the blink environment, do you want to tell people, just describe what happened to you when you found yourself out of your body in that blink environment?
Sure. I found myself standing on a sort of stage with thousands of beings arrayed all around me, like as if I were in a stadium. I was downloading information to these beings. It was like I was transferring it from my mind or my awareness to their awareness, and they were accepting that. And when I had finished, then I told them, I communicated to them that I wasn't going to go back into my body, that I was tired, I was not that interested in going back. And they accepted that. There was no, like, these people are in some authority over me, or there wasn't any ordering anybody around. It was like, these were all my equals.
Yeah.
They were all my partners, they were my friends, were my colleagues, whatever you want to call it. And so, and we were each responsible for ourselves. And and we were working together cooperatively on some things. And so when I communicated this, they all kind of took it in and said, okay, that's great. They also said, well, we would really appreciate it if you would go back, because we think you're really good at this, and we would like this and this done, and we think that you would do a really good job at it. Would you be interested? And I kind of went, sure.
So they had an agenda.
Well, I would say they had some things that they were interested in exploring.
Okay.
And if I would have said no, they would have found somebody else who would have been able to help them, or who would have agreed to help them. It's not like they had to have me doing it.
Okay.
And it wasn't like they were trying to coerce me into anything, or, they had some interests that they wanted explored. And so they asked me if I would like to cooperate with them.
Yeah. And then you agreed. Look, I'm fascinated about what they wanted to explore, because when we think about our free will, that we all have, we are the creators of our own reality, and we're creating it through what we choose to think about. And we have complete freedom in that. We have complete freedom in what we create. And that happens both physically and non-physically. So these beings, what would you call them? Were they like family, soul group? What was your relationship to them?
Well, that kind of depends on what my perspective is.
Right.
I think that if I look at them now, and I do go back and visit that environment, and I do interact with them, and it feels like they are friends.
Yeah.
They're friends and colleagues. That would be the equivalent. But I have gone out, I call it gone out so far to a place where everything is one. And when I'm there, then I just understand those other beings as other aspects of me.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So soul group, that would work, friends, colleagues, sure, that all works.
Yeah.
Whatever, it kind of depends on the perspective, but also on my perspective. My choice of perspective, I would say, depends on what serves me best right now.
Yeah.
I can change my perspective anytime. Any of us can. It matters because of where we are in this moment, where we are in our adventure at this moment. Maybe this perspective serves me better than that one does.
Absolutely. Well said. Brilliantly said. I'm still fascinated as to what they wanted to discover when they said to you, because you don't even talk about this in the book, so maybe I'm prying, but what was it that they wanted you to experience, that they wanted to see, to discover, to experience themselves?
Yeah, I don't remember some of it.
Okay.
I only remember a little bit of it.
Uh-huh.
And I know that writing this book was part of it.
Right.
But,
okay.
But I'm very deliberately didn't talk about that in the book because it's mine.
Okay.
Because it's my adventure.
Okay.
It's my trajectory. And in our human experiences, we're conditioned to think, and it's very hard not to think in terms of hierarchies.
Yes.
And so if I say, well, I came back to do this, then people immediately put that in a hierarchy. They say, oh, she's very holy. Or, oh, she's not very important. I'm doing something much more important than that.
Yeah.
And really, there is no comparison at all. I'm doing this, and it's important to me, and it's important to the people that I'm working with on the other side. But whatever you're doing is also important.
Yeah.
It's not more important or less important. It's important.
That's actually one of the strong messages in the book, is that every single experience, no matter what, good or bad, how we deem it from our perspective, from a physical perspective, is as important as any other experience. That, as you say, there is no hierarchy. But then when we hear people, we start to compare.
Yeah.
Oh, you're better than me, you're more holy than me, you're more enlightened than me, you're more intelligent than me. Yeah, that's what our mind does, right?
Yeah.
So
and I really didn't want to I wanted to completely avoid that in the book. And the way I did that is not talking about what my adventure is all about. In a way, it shouldn't matter to anybody. Each of you should be saying, well, I wonder what my adventure is, or I find out what my adventure is.
yeah.
We all know that. We all know that somewhere inside ourselves. So it's just remembering.
Well, I think we do all know that, but getting clarity on that is something that a lot of people struggle with. I've struggled with it. Like, I've had a knowing ever since I came into, and dreams but not a lot of clarity. I think reading your book and seeing how much clarity you have on your intentions in this lifetime, let me say, I won't say mission, I don't really like the word mission, but
Sure.
that seems delicious, to sort of really, like, I know why I'm here, and I know what I'm here to do, and I've got real clarity on that.
Well, the book may make it sound that way, but like I said, I don't remember all the things that I agreed to do.
Right.
And so in some ways, I'm also in the dark. And the way I think about that is that if you sit down to play a game, say you sit down to play Monopoly.
Yeah.
And what if you already know everything that's going to happen in the game all the way to the end?
Yeah.
Well, then is the game still fun to play? No. You sit down and you go, okay, well, this is going to happen and you're going to win. Okay, we're done. And you get
That's true.
away.
That's
well,
true.
the point of playing the game is to play the game.
Yeah.
And so when we come into this body, there's an equivalent there. We don't need to come in here knowing everything that's going to happen to us. Part of the fun is not knowing. Part of the fun is being in the moment and going moment to moment and riding that ride, playing that game and having fun doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like you don't want to know the end of a movie. You want to go and experience the movie. Like, don't tell me what happens. Don't spoil.
Don't tell me.
But when I read the book, I was revisiting it yesterday. You actually, when you were talking to your mob, your friends, your colleagues, I call my mob the mob. And
I like that.
And then I sort of gave them a bit more of a nice name. I called them blissful beings because bliss seemed to be something that was very present as a word that I had, blissful beings. But you actually asked them to have a sense of remembering when you came back. You said, okay, if I'm going to go back, here's some conditions. I got me some conditions.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of made a joke about it in the book and said, yeah, kind of conditions. But really, it was kind of asking them as a favor. You know, it was the same way that they asked me to help them with these things. I then asked them, okay, you know, will you help me with these things? And it wasn't even like a barter or a bargain. It was more like they asked me for some things and I said yes. And then I thought, oh, I could ask them for some things. I'll ask them for some things and they can either say yes or no. And they said yes. Yay.
Because this is what I'm thinking. So your near-death experience happened in a blink. You call it the blink. So 1 minute you're in the body, the next minute you're back in the body, and the time that had gone past on Earth was like seconds, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it was just seconds. Mm-hmm.
Seconds. So your experience was something's happening, like bang, and then the next thing, like there was sort of like no break in your physical experience except for you had this amazing experience in non-physical. I think we've all had it when we fall asleep. We could fall asleep for a minute on the bus or in class or hopefully not behind the wheel of a car and then wake up and you've had this amazing dream, but you've actually literally been asleep for a second.
Yeah.
So there's this time, because there's no such thing as time from that perspective.
Right.
Did they explain how time works while you were over there?
No, I didn't even ask. I wasn't even interested.
Okay.
You know, a lot of questions that my physical mind, physical body, personality mind might be curious about. Once I'm out of the body, those things have no interest for me. They're just not even
relevant.
I don't have any curiosity about them at all. You know, now I can look at that and I can see that time isn't what we think it is, for one thing. I mean, there's no time and there's the time we know, but there's a lot of ways to experience time and space. It's a construct that, in a sense, is worked into the fabric of the structure of this particular environment that we can come to and play in, this particular earth physical environment. And it serves here, you know, and there are other realities that have you can experience sort of different aspects of time, or time in a similar way but a little bit different, or time in a very different way. But it's almost like, when I look at it, it's almost like this field, and you can participate it in the edges of the field, or right in the middle of the field, or anywhere, you know, a lot of different places in the field, and it's never going to be quite the same experience. It's very difficult to explain time space, I think.
Yeah, it is. From our perspective, it's difficult, but when you have that non-physical experience, it seems like obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
But not so obvious from this perspective, because we're so enmeshed in this perspective and the time-space reality. Yeah,
and we have our language is limited. You know, we don't necessarily have the concepts and the words that would make that understanding easy for us. Maybe if a physicist had a near-death experience and came back, maybe he or she would be able to describe that a little better. I can't.
Well, that'll be on the cards. But what I thought was, so you had this experience in a blink here, but the book is so comprehensive and so in depth. As you were writing the book, did you just have downloads of the memory of it, or did you just have full memory? Like you said that you didn't remember everything, but what is in the book is so, as I say, comprehensive.
Yeah, what I did was I had I would say an instantaneous whole memory.
Right.
And then it was like it was almost too much. And so I slowed everything down and went back into the experience as if I were experiencing it again.
Right.
And if you, I think that a lot of people who are psychic might understand. When you're doing maybe a psychic reading or something, you get an instantaneous flash of information, and you can go into that information and sort of unpack it and unravel it and go deeper into it, or you can take just the surface of it and let it go and then wait for the next flash of information. And in this case, I got the whole memory and I was like, whoa. Mm. And then I was able to slow it down, go into it, and really take my time noticing things. It's almost like balancing between the physical and the non-physical in order to translate it into words and concepts that would make sense to the physical mind.
When did you have the whole memory? Because I would imagine that when you were in the blast and you woke up and your body is sort of not looking very happy, like you had a hole in your head and your wrist, your right wrist was like your hand was practically severed, wasn't it? And you had a big hole in your side as well. Like you're in a bomb blast.
Yeah, I did. I had a broken heel. I had there was still shrapnel in my heel. I had the two, the ulna and radius, the two forearm bones were shattered, and all the bones on the right side of my face were broken, and I couldn't see out of my right eye, and I had shrapnel everywhere, little tiny pieces of shrapnel, so blood all over. But yeah, when I first came back, I had a flash memory. It's like, waking up from a dream, and you're like, whoa, I remember the dream as a flash, and a few things really stood out. But I immediately put it aside thinking, I got some stuff to do here right now.
Yeah.
Just concentrate on the physical right
exactly,
now.
Yeah. Yeah. So was it later on when you were in hospital that the memory started to come to you?
It was actually after I got out of the hospital.
Okay.
When I was in hospital, I was very drugged up still. And I was in hospital for about a month. I got out for about 2 weeks and then had to go back in for some face surgery because I had those holes in my head and they needed to put some patches on those. And so once I got out after that surgery, then I felt like, okay, now there's no more setbacks. Everything is full speed ahead now. I'm healing now. I can just let my body heal, and I don't have to kind of monitor things so closely, and I wasn't so drugged up. My drugs were being stepped down. Mm-hmm. And so it was a couple weeks probably after that surgery, or a month after that surgery, when I actually sat down with my computer and I thought, okay, now I'm going to return to that moment. Because I always remembered that moment of, this is like waking up from a dream.
Yeah.
So what was that dream? So now I said, okay, now I'm gonna go back into that dream and I'm gonna remember all of it. Wow. And I actually didn't know if I would be able to, and was kind of surprised when it came back so crystal
vividly.
Yeah, it was
part of the arrangement that you'd made with the mob. Your friends,
I'm
your
colleagues.
Start talking to them. Look, my mob are very irreverent.
Yes, mine too.
And laugh and joke. And I think I was reading last night, they were laughing at you, at some of your experiences. They do that to me all the time. Like I had this image once of them. I don't really have personalities or faces or anything, just a bunch of people that were just rolling around holding their bellies at my expense. And I'm
Yes.
like, oh, come on, guys, like, come on, give me a break.
Yeah. Well, from that perspective, some things that we do can just be so hilarious. They really can be very, very funny.
I'll share that experience with you. I went to see some guru that was out here from India, and I'd driven hours out in the sweltering heat. It was the summertime here, and I was in a little dress. It was quite a few years ago. And when I got there, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to sit in front of the all-knowing, all-seeing guru. He's going to do what your book did for you. He's going to open it all up for me. He's going to tell me why I'm here, what my purpose is. It's all going to be revealed. I was so excited, Anyway, I sat in front of this man and he asked me really lame questions like, do you meditate? And I'm like, you're the all-seeing, all-knowing guru. You know me.
Why are you asking me?
You know me completely. You can look into my blueprint and see my soul. Why are you asking that stupid question? And I'm like, yes. And then he asked me a few more lame questions. And then he tried to sell me some like worry beads. And, and I'm like, what's going on? And then we go and do some singing. So I'm sitting in a group of people, mostly Indian. I'm one of the few white people in the room. They've asked me to cover up because I was a bit too exposed for their liking. And then they asked me to start the singing. And I'm like, what part of me looks like I know how to sing in Indian? So as I'm driving home, I'm going, what was that about? And they were laughing.
Your mob was rolling on the floor.
Rolling around, rolling. They were rolling.
I can see that.
And I said, what was that about? They said, you keep looking for the guru, Karen, the guru's within. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the guru's within. And that's very much what your book, what your experience, I suppose. Well, maybe you knew that before your experience, that the guru was within.
Well, I think we all need reminders sometimes.
You had some reminder, girl, I tell you.
Yes, I did. That's another way of describing why I didn't want to say exactly why I was coming back here or what I came back to do. Because I'm my guru and you're your guru. And, somebody else can tell you, somebody else may be able to tell you what you're doing, but in the end, that should only present another question. And that question should be, are they right? Because when you hear a truth, you're going to feel it in your own body.
Yeah.
And so you may be thinking, well, they gave that to me. But in truth, you're feeling it. You're the one resonating.
Yeah.
You're giving it to yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Listen to what feels right to you. Yeah. Yeah. Look, one of the things that stuck with me about your book is, because I call myself a teacher of deliberate creation. So I'm teaching people that we are creating all the time and we don't have to be unconscious about that. We can be deliberate in that. We can be more conscious about that by listening to what we think and how we feel, just as you've described. Listen to how you feel when you hear this information. Does it sit with you? Does it resonate with you? Is it part of your perspective right now, part of your life experience? And you were with one of your guides when you were looking down at your body that had been blown up, and you and your guides were designing your injuries, which I found amazing, because that, you're like, we are creating from either from conscious or non-physical, but we are creating all of it. Do you want to explain more about what was going on there?
Yeah, I was with two other beings. One of them was really a good buddy of mine, and the other one was almost like observing us or learning or something. I don't know.
Apprentice.
We didn't an apprentice maybe. And so we could see down below us, we could see the whole scene with the truck and the desert, and it was like it was in a freeze frame or something. And we could see inside the truck, and we could see my body, and we could see my body as a physical body, but we could also see it as an organization of energy. And so we were playing around with injuries. So it was like the equivalent of wave your hand and all of a sudden I've got a big hole in my side or a big hole in my head. And as soon as we did that, then we would see a kind of a holographic flash picture, that's really hard to explain, but this instantaneous sort of picture of what the rest of my life would look like with that injury, with brain damage, or with my right hand being cut off, and from that perspective, it was hilarious to see that played out.
I know you guys were laughing.
Oh, we were laughing so hard, and it's still funny to me. And it's only funny from that perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously, when you're in that experience and in the physical, it can feel endless. It can be horrible. It can be just torturous and ripping. But from that perspective, everything is seen as beautiful and useful and valuable and fun. And so, losing my right hand and having to learn how to write with my left hand would be very funny from their perspective. Not necessarily from my perspective in the movie playing that role.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
what I love about this is that if only we could don some of that perspective while we're going through our drama. I mean, I remember when I was young and I was going through some emotional drama, probably over a boy, it was always over a boy, and feeling devastated, horrendously devastated and alone. And then there was a part of me that was really enjoying that.
Yes.
I was watching a good movie, and there was that part where you're connecting emotionally to the person and you're crying with them like, oh my God, this is so sad. But you're really enjoying it. Was like, it wouldn't have been as good of a movie had you not gone through that drama. So I had that awareness when I was very young. And I think I read books that called it The Witness. Mm-hmm. There's a part of you that it's witnessing what you're going through all the time, and in that moment, and often when we hit those really tragic parts in our life, we kind of separate, maybe it was a way of protecting it, and we become conscious of the witness, the one that's enjoying the show.
I had some very vivid experiences of that when I was a kid, and also after I got blown up.
Right.
I think that I think it's possible to cultivate that.
Yeah.
The more we practice it consciously, then the more available that is when we get to the places in our lives that feel more challenging, harder, more difficult. Then we'll have that practice to back us up. We'll have that tool in our toolbox to be able to tune into that witness and to say, oh, wow, okay, so I can be both suffering in some sense, I can be in pain, and I can be watching my pain and holding some compassion for myself and holding some space for myself and holding some peace for myself within that. Yeah. I think it's possible.
Yeah, and I think that the more that, like I said to you at the beginning of this, some people have an agenda. That's my agenda.
That's a good agenda.
That's a good to teach people that like my guides often say, you're suffering over your suffering. And then they say, oh, get over yourself. They're really irreverent with me. They're like, get over yourself, and sort of snap me out of it sometimes. It's so great to sort of be snapped out of it. Like, oh, right, yeah, I'm doing it again.
The way I put it in my book is that I think the Buddhists say this, that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Yeah.
Suffering comes from our perspective, where we place our beliefs and our perspective, where we're looking from. And so if we feel like we're a victim or suffering, then we have the choice to look a little deeper and to remember who we are and what we are, and to say, you know what, I created this, and so I am going to love it.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. There's just the power in knowing that you are creating it, and that's why I love the bit in your book about being present to you and your guides, having a belly laugh, creating your injuries, because we can have that perspective. We don't have to have a near-death experience to realize or to come to the awareness that even though it might seem horrendous, but on some level I've created this. And why did I create this? There is a reason, there's a purpose, there's a gift, there's a knowing, there's an experience, there's a lesson, whatever you want to call it. But there's a reason that I created this. And to focus on the reason and not the drama. Okay, the drama's happening, but there's a higher perspective here that I can find.
Yeah, and another way that I put it, because, that's a really horrific kind of thing to say to someone who's suffering. Yeah. Well, you created this.
Yes.
Don't say that to people. Please, nobody say that to people. Because if you don't have that perspective, then now you've just, you've hurt them badly by saying that. And so another way to look at this is, people say, why am I suffering? Why am I suffering? Well, one thing I say is, quit asking, why am I suffering? And ask yourself, how do I best handle this?
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. It's when we give ourselves a challenge, we give ourselves that challenge in order to see in order to give ourselves the opportunity to handle it well, the best way we can. And that's not to handle it perfectly. It's to handle it the best way we can, knowing what we know right now.
Yeah.
And to carry that with some compassion for yourself. So, why? We're programmed to ask why. We have to understand why. Well, we don't always have to understand why. Sometimes a more valuable question to ask yourself is, how do I best handle this?
Yeah. What can I find in myself that knows how to handle this?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I had an experience once. A friend died suddenly and I got the news, and a friend of mine said to me, I was at a friend's place, come on, we'll go for a walk. You don't want to sit here and wallow. And she said, put some shoes on. I don't want you to fall over. And I was in a bit of shock, and I'm like going, right, yeah. Just thinking, how could he be so young, so gorgeous, and be dead? I was in shock. So we went for a walk and I fell over, and I landed on some glass, and it took off the top of my knee, shaved off the top of my knee. And I didn't feel any pain, so I got up, but I felt the blood dripping down. So I looked, and when I looked, I realized what I'd done, and it was horrendous. Mm-hmm. But I had absolutely no pain whatsoever. And I went, I've taken my knee off. So I sat down and I put my hand over it, and I asked my girlfriend to call an ambulance. Mm-hmm. And she was so shocked because I was so calm. I wasn't in pain at all.
All right.
She said, don't be silly, get up. And I said, no, I've hurt myself. And she said, no, you haven't, because I wasn't doing drama.
Hysterical.
I know. And as she said, show me. I said, you don't want to look at it, because if you look at it, you'll freak out, and I want you to stay calm and call me an ambulance. And she said, I don't believe you. So I showed her, and she freaked out, and she ran around like a headless chicken and went running off. I'll get the car. And as she ran up the road, I realized I was parked behind her, so there was no way she was going to get the car. So I asked this stranger, excuse me, could you please call me an ambulance? And an ambulance came. But I had this experience of having no pain, like I had done a really bad injury to myself, but no pain at all. And everyone who looked at the wound had this shocked, like, oh my God, how did you do that? And I'm thinking, I wish they'd stop reacting like that, because I'm really calm right now. Yeah. And they can sort of like,
I could from them.
Exactly. I could catch their. And if I do, I'll be in pain,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like physical pain. So I said to my mob, what was that all about? Nice big scar on my knee to remind me of the beautiful experience. Mm-hmm. I was in hospital for a week, and then I was in a cast for 6 weeks. And they said, where there is no resistance, there is no pain.
Exactly. That's perfect. Yeah, we resist so much. And when we let go of resistance, and just say, well, this is where I am right now, and I wonder where I'll be next, then a lot of our resistance comes with wanting something that isn't there, or with trying to maintain something in a infinity that's always creating and changing. And if we get into the flow like you did, and say, oh, now this has happened and this is what I do next.
Yeah.
If we don't have any resistance, then there's a real lightness of being in there. It's what the Buddhists talk about, non-attachment, and it's not an indifference. You're in the moment entirely, but you're in that moment freely, without any strings of expectations or desires beyond fully occupying that moment. You show up, you pay attention. When we let go of that resistance, that's beautiful. No resistance, no pain. Yeah.
Did you have that experience when you were blown up in that, after you had some memory of the blink moment?
Did I have experience of no pain?
Yeah, that sort of acceptance.
Oh, absolutely, of that acceptance, yes. Yeah. And even excitement.
Really?
When I was sitting in the truck, after I came to, and the truck rolled to a stop, and I did some things in the truck and then I was waiting for the rest of the team to show up. And I was looking out the window, and I thought, I wonder if I'll be able to see out of this eye, because I couldn't see out of my right eye. And I remembered a dream that I had a few years before. In this dream, it was a lucid dream. I met my grandmother, and she was making these beautiful pictures in my mind. And in the dream, she was blind. In real life, she hadn't been blind. And I said, Grandma, how can you make these beautiful pictures when you're blind? And as soon as I said it, I thought, oh, duh. And she leaned toward me and she said, Natalie, you don't need eyes to see. Go tell your father that everything's all right. And so as I was sitting in this truck all blown up, I remembered that dream, and I thought, maybe if I can't see out of this physical eye, I'll be able to see other worlds more clearly. And I got so excited. I was so excited. It was that moment that had no resistance and no fear.
Wow.
I was completely in that moment and excited for any new experience that came to me. The potentials, what will this be like? I wonder what will happen. Wow. It was very, very exciting.
Such a great way to be in an explosion in Iraq. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I bet
I did have pain later.
I bet, exactly. Like we have those flashes of insight, and then we forget, and then we get caught up with the pain and the then we forget.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's always a bad thing.
Yeah.
Moving back and forth between that. We came here to this physical world to experience this physical world as it is. Yeah. And sometimes to completely lose yourself in it there's a real beauty in that. There's a real holiness in that as well. It's not like we always have to be in a certain mindset to be spiritual or to be connected or to be holy. We're always connected and we're always spiritual and we're always holy. And if we want that to be conscious in this moment, that's fine. And if we, quote, lose that and completely immerse ourselves in this delicious physical adventure, that's good too.
Yeah, yeah. My daughter, when she was young, was watching The Matrix. Mm-hmm. And there was the scene where the guy was given the choice between the two pills, the red pill and the blue pill. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember. I think the red pill meant that he would stay aware and conscious of his new perspective. And the blue pill meant that he would forget everything that he'd learned and he'd go back into the illusion. And she's watching the movie say, the blue pill, the blue pill, the blue pill. She's 8 or something, or she's little.
Yeah.
like really small. She might have even been 6. And I remember looking at her thinking, okay, so that's your choice. And I was really aware that what you were saying just before, she wanted to be completely immersed in the physical experience, not knowing any sort of who am I and what's possible, but
it can
just
be really fun,
the blue pill, you know.
Okay to do.
And then when she was about 15, she'd had a boyfriend for about a minute and they'd broken up, and she was doing drama, and she was like running through the rain crying, and her girlfriends were chasing her and really doing drama. And I said to her, trying to give her some sort of, some
Perspective.
Yes. And I said, you were really happy before you had this boyfriend. He's not responsible for your happiness. And she looked at me and she goes, I know that, Mum. Let me have my drama.
Yeah, there's some fun in having that drama. I mean, part of the fun of being here is experiencing all emotions.
Yep.
Look at little kids. They love to be scared.
Yeah.
They love to be, when they cry with their whole being.
Exactly.
They're flopped on the floor, sobbing like it's the end of the world. And then the next moment they're up and running around and laughing, and it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Delicious. It's all amazing.
Yeah. and we create the fear. We go to horror movies, and people climb out, put themselves in extreme conditions like climbing Mount Everest and nearly dying and having their fingers chopped off, and because they're like the deliciousness of the ride,
Yes. Yeah, a war zone is similar.
Exactly.
It's very real. You're very present. It's very concentrated and intense. And it's a horror, but it's also, there's something delicious about it, just like there's something delicious about everything in life.
Yeah. I remember when I was a teenager, I was speaking to a friend of mine's cousin who was living in Lebanon at the time, back and forth. And there was a lot of war happening there, dreadful war. And she said, I love it over there. Sydney is so boring. And I said, you love being in a war zone where you're seeing dead bodies and things blown up all the time? She said, yep. She said, when I leave my house, I never know if I'm going to come back alive. And she said, that's delicious to me. And it really gave me a perspective of like, some people want this experience, like they consciously want that experience. She wasn't shooting anyone or in the war, but she was just liking living in that war zone.
We talk about living in the moment. Well, go to a war zone, you'll be living in the moment. It makes you're very alive every instant, and there's something really delicious about that. And for me, sometimes it's a challenge to bring that into just everyday life and to stay present in this everyday life, because a lot of things are kind of sloppy, whereas when you're living in the moment, you're in the flow and there isn't anything sloppy. But it can be a challenge to be in a war zone and then leave that war zone and go, whoa, this is not very interesting.
Yeah, back to the mundaneness of life.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, the New Age spiritual community are very much, and I am too, about peace and stopping war on the planet. So this is a question that maybe your mob can answer this through you, that I've pondered, in that as we're evolving as a humanity and we're becoming more conscious, and conversations like the one you and I are having are becoming more prevalent on the net and more available. Do you think that war will ever stop on this physical dimension, or do you think it's an experience that will always be cherished from a non-physical perspective? No,
I don't. I mean, I think that there are some things that are really beautiful about within it, but war as a choice is not our best choice. Right. It's not our best foot forward.
Yeah.
And do I think that it will always be part of the human experience? No, I don't.
Right, yeah.
I think that that exploration of violence I think it's about run its course.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so far that you can take it. And then you start repeating yourself. And so infinity is infinitely creative.
Yeah.
And if we sort of run something to its end, like violence, if we kind of explore that to its very end, then what is the point of just keeping on doing something over and over that's the same thing? I don't think that serves us in our human bodies and experiences, or as beings, as infinite beings. I don't think that's best foot forward, best choice, and I don't think that we'll keep choosing that.
Great answer. So in places like Iraq, where people are so running on that instinct to survive and kill, do you see that shifting? I've never been to a place like that. You have. Do you see that new awareness, that new consciousness creeping into that, to their perspective?
Well, you go to, if you've never been to a war zone, then you might think that you might have this idea of what it's like there.
Yeah.
But really, it's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's
Hollywood's perspective.
It's a lot like everyday life with these moments of chaos. It's 95% or 98% or 99% of the people there just wanting to feed their families and plant their plants and run their business and have a nice life.
Yeah.
And there's 1% or 3% or 5% who are filled with fear and acting out on that, right, and creating chaos for everyone else. But it's not chaos everywhere. A war zone, in most cases, it's not like the whole country is always violent. It's like these little pockets of violence mixed into daily life.
Yeah.
Everyone's still trying to make a living. Everybody's still doing business. Everyone's still trying to feed their families. People are still going to school. Mm. And so, is there a new awareness? Well, a lot of those people are just like us. There's some awareness there, and there's some not awareness there. Mm-hmm. And there are people who just want peace, a lot of people who just want peace, and there's a few people who are really frightened, and that comes out as anger and as trying to control other people and as violence and not knowing how to get what they need. And so I'm not sure I'm answering your question very well.
No, I think it's a great answer, because I've never been there, so you're giving me a picture of what it's like over there. So it's great for all of us that are in the West, that the only way we know about it is on our news, and the news presents the worst part of it. We don't get to see what really goes on.
You don't get to see the humanity.
Yeah, exactly.
I worked with some engineers. I had 5 Iraqi engineers on my staff, and we got to be pretty good friends. And I really feel, they touch my heart. Yeah. I miss them. Mm. And I often worry about them. But they're praying to Allah, and I am doing whatever energy work. But it doesn't matter. We say to each other, I'll pray for you, because it's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
We all want the same thing. We all want peace. We all want to respect each other. We all want to belong. We all want to feel valuable. And so, the people who can't seem to find that or can't seem to get that are, in a sense, acting out. Well, how do the rest of us draw those people in and say, calm their fears and say, you belong, you are valuable, you belong here, and we want you to participate in our peace. How do we say that? Maybe we need to find a way to say that.
Oh, beautiful. What a beautiful message. Well, it's been a complete joy and pleasure chatting with you today, Natalie. I really find, as I said before, your book so comprehensive. In the book, you go in to explain quite a few things about who we are as non-physical beings and what happens on the other side of this physical experience. You talk about the Blink environment, which was your environment where you were there amongst buddies, like millions of them, downloading energy. And there were different what's the word? There was a different intention in that environment. And then you talk about the healing environment, which you said that you could, from that perspective, very much affect the physical manifestation here on Earth, which I thought was fascinating. And then the deep rest environment, you talked about that environment where you felt like you could just go and rest and sort of shake off all the trauma of having a physical experience. And also the life review. I'd love to talk about all these things with you another time.
I'd love to come back. It's been fun talking with you, and it would be really fun to have another session.
Yeah, to explore more. You're a fabulous teacher, and I love your message.
Oh, thank you.
And I can't say it again. Passionately go out, and if you're interested in this sort of thing and finding out who we are and just exactly how powerful we are as creators of our own reality, Natalie's fabulous book is called The Application of Impossible Things. Your website?
NatalieSudman.com. And I sometimes blog at traceofelements.com.
And also a beautiful artist. You can see Natalie's artwork there as well.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Natalie.
Thank you, Karen. I look forward to talking to you again.
The wonderful Natalie Sudman there. Oh, what a great conversation. If you'd like to listen to more conversations like this, enlightening you to the power of your thoughts and the power of your being, go to karenswain.com and listen to some of my fascinating guests on radio. Or you can have a session with me and talk to my guides, blissful beings, or the mob, as we talked about it in the interview, and ask them any question you like. Also, if you're in Sydney, we have conscious creation nights. If you want to be amongst friends and ask questions about exactly how you are the genius creator of your reality. Remember to go to our Facebook page, Accentuate the Positive Radio with Karen Swain, or Blissful Beings Reminders from Home. Also, if you're listening on iTunes, remember to rate and review the show. Thanks again. Bye for now.
Clap along if you feel like that's what you want.